let's talk about the words "what's next" and figure it out quotes, because those are some of the things that I hear so much as a midlife coach is I should have it figured out by now. I want to figure out what's next for me. I don't know what's next for me. And I think that's a really common feeling, especially in midlife when we get to a new stage. It's like, oh, okay, this is a lot of things are really different than they used to be. And what does this look like? What can this look like? But I also think that by this age, we're used to having things figured out and being really competent and knowing. And so we find ourselves kind of in this in-between space. And, as we're recording this, it's September, 16th. And, it can be 40 degrees out and people are talking about pumpkin spice lattes. So nothing shows me that we're uncomfortable being in the in-between more than this time of year. It's not really summer anymore, but it's not really fall yet. And what am I supposed to wear? And what am I supposed to do? So I think this in-between I know what used to be true and I don't yet know what is true can be really uncomfortable. And so, I think what I have found personally and also with my clients is part of it is just getting used to being comfortable with discomfort and opening ourselves up to not knowing, and that just sort of the mystery of that and accepting that at this exact point we don't know. And what I try to do is emphasize not so much what do I want to do, but who do I want to be? What's important to me? What qualities of mine do I want to bring with me into this next stage? What relationships are important? What lights me up? What makes me feel alive? Those kind of things. And I feel like when we focus on that, we end up being a different person than we were when we started the exploration and doing really interesting, cool things that we wouldn't have done otherwise. So that's sort of what I want to say to people. If they say, I should have it figured out or I don't, that's okay. Just be, have some self-compassion that this is new and that it's okay to be in a space that is new. And I would just encourage people to just, be open to possibilities and I think one of the things that's really an opportunity at this stage of life is letting go of some of the lies that you told yourself in the first half that held you back. So just without self-editing, without self-criticism, just like, what if, what are the possibilities? And I think that's a really beautiful place to start.
Yes, I just had this vision of birds and possibility, doors opening, all these visuals of sort of an unfolding, right? As opposed to feeling like you have to live by somebody else's script or rules. And I mean, if the pandemic has taught me one thing, it's to rethink and challenge pretty much everything. Ask yourself, is that actually true? And who does that advice work for? Because maybe it doesn't work for me. And even just, when I was researching my book, I came across some stuff about the social clock, the idea that our culture, the wider Western culture, gives us messages that by age such and such, you should have achieved X, Y, Z. And so I hear wonderfully accomplished, lovely women feeling like they're behind or they've missed the boat, which is terrible in both directions. It's either too late or, I blew it somehow in my 20s by not doing this thing. So I would encourage people to really just be patient with themselves and to realize that sometimes it takes longer to figure out what it is you want to do, who you are, why you were meant to be in the world. And sometimes it's a case of saying, all of those other rules did apply to me when I was younger. And now I'm a different human, and I want to figure out, where does this take me? And to be driven by curiosity and wonder and a love of learning. I mean, I have just gone back into the kindergarten class of writing in terms of trying to figure out how to do fiction. I mean, I've obviously written a few books. I have 26 nonfiction books out there in the world, but fiction, total newbie. And you know what? If you approach it from a place of wonder and learning and growth, it is amazing. The creative joy I am experiencing these days, I wish that for everybody at midlife, that they find their thing that this sounds so sappy, but that sets their heart on fire, that they can't wait to get out of bed in the morning because it's so fascinating and exciting. So a small wish for every midlife woman.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I have to say, one of the things that um, used to plague me in my younger years was a lack of creativity, that I was told I wasn't creative. And one of the ways that I've found some creativity, aside from the fact that I realized as a parent that I'm very creative, because how do you get a 3-year-old into the bath? Creativity. But what I started doing collages, and a lot during the pandemic, doing collages. And, they weren't particularly good. I was also in the kindergarten, back to kindergarten. But as I continue doing them, I'm finding my voice through these things in a new way. And I just made 3 new ones. And I'm like, oh, like these actually have something to say that's real. And so I would say, don't rush yourself. Like, just let yourself be intuitively drawn into the thing, and don't put pressure on the results, and just see what happens. And it might take years, and that's fine. Like, just let your intuition kind of guide that. It's really fun.
It's totally where I am. I feel like my deadline for writing this novel is, maybe by the end of my life.
Uh-huh.
So that gives me like all the time in the world. And you know what I often think to myself is, maybe the joy in this for me is going to be in the process, learning about craft, thinking, oh man, now when I read the opening to a novel, I can see what the writer's doing. That is fascinating. And I can try to apply and learn those things, but anybody who tries to say, like, how many words have you gotten written? Well, I think they might be negative words at this point. I have 20,000 rough words and rough notes to myself, but in terms of polished prose, I've thrown away 90% of what I've written because I don't like it, which is part of the joyous exploration. I imagine if you're working in different art forms, like, you have to figure out, how do you use your brush? Like, the first time you move a brush across a page, it's not going to necessarily be what you're trying to say. Well, it
That's
certainly
right.
isn't for me. If you ever saw my stick people, I have a very different vision in my head than what comes out on the page. But isn't that part of the joy of this life stage? Just saying, you know what, I don't have to be good at this. I am a beginner. So let's be in that joyful beginner mindset.
Absolutely. I remember when I first started experimenting with different art forms, my son said to me, he was quite little at the time, like maybe 11 or 10, or I'm not sure. He said, it will take a while for your skills to catch up to your taste. And because he does a lot of art. And I thought that was really brilliant. I'm not sure where he got it, but it's true. And by midlife, we do have pretty well developed taste. We have seen a lot of incredible creativity, read amazing books. Like, it's like, oh, I'll never be able to do that. But it's not about that. It's really not about measuring up. It's really just about finding a way to express something inside of yourself that's true, and getting it out of you. And I think that's the purpose of creativity. And it can come in a million different forms: gardening, cooking, all the things, fashion, like whatever it is for you. So for me, it's all really about self-expression.
It totally is. And there's sometimes something wonderfully hilarious about learning a new skill. I am not a gardener. So when you mentioned gardening, I had to tell this story. I bought a bunch of little wildflower seed packets. And you know how on the package it says, like, poke little holes and put the seeds at, a certain distance. I figured, like, that sounds awfully rigid to me. I think I'm just going to sprinkle the entire package in this pot.
Uh-huh.
So I have urban sprawl and traffic jams in a flower pot. It's like every inch of the pot is green, and nothing ever got to be a flower because there were too many of them. So sometimes it makes sense to pay attention to, like, some, basic foundational principles. However, I was happy to spend a season learning that lesson of what if. So let's do some more
Yes.
what ifing and really enjoy this chapter in our lives.